what we're going to do is I'm going to pick out some paragraphs and go over them rather than have everyone read them because we don't have time, unfortunately. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, I know, but you can read them on your own.
Read it to the dogs.
Right. Or 3 of them.
Yes.
All right, metaphysical teaching is a process like repeating the multiplication tables until you see how they work. Okay, do you remember the day you realized that multiplication was just addition?
No.
I don't either.
Now you know.
I still don't know that. No.
Recently.
5 sixes. 6 plus 6 plus 6. Plus
Okay.
6 plus 6. All right. Repeat them long enough, and sometime along the way, if you've learned addition and subtraction, you'll see that multiplication is simply quick counting. Very good. All right. So, and then in the next sentence, if you're merely repeating the tables by following someone else's dictation, it may take a long time. Right. All right. A lot of us were taught that we have to learn by rote, and that it wasn't okay to reason for ourselves, right? Yeah? It wasn't okay to find our own way. And this is actually why some people are so scared of the new math. Because this new math, as opposed to the new math many of us baby boomers were given, says, well, this is how we're going to teach you how to do it. But if this doesn't work for you, you could do it this way. Here's another way to think about this. Or here's another way to think about this. And this way works too. But people who are trained, this is the only way, look at that and go, ah! So that's why they get so upset about it. All right? We don't have to live in a by rote world anymore. We are not going to be automatons in factories anymore. So that's what that's about. All right. So the science of mind works in the same orderly way. Each step builds upon the last. We deal first with general principles, which apply to all conditions alike, then later with particulars and specific individuals. Your idea of good is general. There are also specific aspects of it, but in general, it's a general idea of good. It's like everybody else's. Everybody believes about the good. It's our collective consciousness. The conviction of good belonging to you is a general, omnipresent conviction. So the foundation belief is the good for me is my God, omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. All right? So then she goes in the next paragraph. Moses, writing the book of Genesis, said that the Spirit commanded, let there be light. In the first lesson, we learned to hold the idea of good in our mind, in our feelings, in our being, okay? Just as the Spirit's first action was to move upon the waters, the moment that this great idea laying silently in your mind is uttered, it brings a feeling of light and hope to the mind, right? Right. So the second movement of your mind, the next page, after telling what truly is, will be the dissolving of any ideas that interfere with your experiencing here and now, the good that you see. That's what we do in lesson 2. So lesson 1 was establishing the foundation. Lesson 2 is going, oh, I really think this, I don't think that. So I better get rid of this so I can have that. Right? All right. So the second lesson, next paragraph. So the second lesson is negation or denial of the appearances around us. The negation or denial of the appearances around us. Everything that is material, this isn't in the text, this is me. Everything that is material is an appearance. Matter is not real in its own way. It is, right, it's something we've been perceiving because of our mental framework, or actually projecting onto things because of our mental framework. It is not real in its own way. So it's an appearance.
I need a little help with that.
I know. I can see that.
Maybe it's because I don't, maybe we're speaking in different terms. When you say real,
Uh-huh.
I have this notion that if I can touch it, feel it,
Yeah.
work it,
Yep.
it's real.
Yep.
And if someone says, go pet that cat over there and I don't see the cat, then the cat is not real. So, if you could help me.
Sure, absolutely. So there's two ways to do this. One is to simply say lowercase r and uppercase r. That which we need to be able to sense, touch, etc. with our human senses is lowercase r real. Okay? It is real to us because we can touch it and feel it and work with it. We need to believe that that tree, is going to be something we don't want to walk into. Right? Yeah, right. That's what the whole sense perception thing is about. The uppercase R is all those things we said the good is: truth, beauty, wholeness, harmony, peace, all those other things. So in the appearance of distress, as Sarah was able to do, by focusing on truth, the good, the appearance of the distress flows away. My GPS said I wasn't getting here till 3:30. I was in Florence before 3. So, what's my good? My good is being here with you. And hopefully you guys not suffer in the process. So I did, I believed it enough that I got late, but not enough to let it run my life. So it was an appearance that was put, that I could either buy into or not buy into. So that's one layer that you can do. Small r, capital R. The capital R is the good in all its form. Small r is the appearances. Another way to think about it is that in the way that we did in the video in the last program you attended at Coos-Bay, and that is that the stuff around us is like an icon on our desktop, okay? If I have a file that I'm working on and I've put it up on my desktop, that picture on my desktop is not the file. It is pointing to a whole bunch of data that's spread all the way around on my hard disk in lots of different places, okay? It is not the file. However, I don't want to put that in the trash bin on my desktop, because then those little bits and pieces will not be available to me, all right? So I take it seriously. I'm not just going to treat this little piece of icon on my desktop as if it had no meaning, but I don't have to take it as reality. It isn't the real thing. Okay, so the water pitcher I take seriously. I see, the hot pot, I take that seriously. I'm reminded of my 3-year-old, Aurora, this is hot, don't touch it. Yes, Mommy. So, yeah, I take it seriously, but not literally. It is a pointer to something that is real. It is a symbol for something that is real. It is a symbol for nourishment, or a symbol for friendship, or a symbol of all kinds of things. And we're going to work with that a lot as we move forward. So just be aware that most of what we experience physically is an appearance covering up the reality. Yes, Diane.
I'm somehow not feeling great. I'm just going to have to say I'm sorry and leave.
It's sad to hear that, because we love your presence.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Thank
So listen to it on the computer if you're willing and able. Thank you.
Next time. We'll miss you.
So I have another question about matter. I learned last week that substance is the matter of the universe showing up in the form that we're calling forth in this moment.
Right.
So if I'm calling matter forth in this moment to be this glass, the glass is not real?
No. And I didn't intend for you to write the matter of the universe. So substance is the stuff of the universe, the quantum stuff, the stuff behind matter, the wavicles of the universe, if you will, that shows up in the form of matter that serves us best. Okay? However, if I'm functioning in a totally different level of beingness, I don't need this. This no longer serves me best. Something else serves me best.
Okay.
Okay? In another total level of beingness, this table no longer serves us best, these chairs, okay?
And neither of them are plastic.
Right on. So one of the things that we can do is recognize that the material world is the best we can experience in this moment, given all the thoughts we brought to this moment. It is the universe showing up as the best we can define our good, experience our good, the most cool, perfect, fitting way we can experience our good in this moment.
And that's capital R or little r?
I didn't say reality. I didn't use the word at all. Okay, so capital R has no form.
Okay.
Right.
Capital R, reality, has no form. It is qualities as abstractions. And we'll get more into that as we go forward. But the belief that matter has reality in its own is one of the things we get to negate in lesson 2. So let us move on. All right? So the first thing, the most important thing, is recognizing, right, that our good is not absent. Okay? All right? And the first sentence in that section, though all beings are aware of the good that is for them, most people feel that it's absent from them, and they keep saying so.
Yeah.
I don't have the money I need, I don't have the whatever I need, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough, no, whatever it is, right? And so people will tend to think about how their good is absent. They say aloud their good is absent, right? Next paragraph. A belief in absence may clothe itself in many forms. For some, a belief in the absence of good takes the form of being grateful they're so blessed more than others. Right? A belief in absence says nobody doesn't have what they need. Everyone has all the good they're ready to experience. All right? All the good they're ready to experience. All the good they allow it. Okay? There's a line in the Course in Miracles, any lost love, lost joy, lost happiness, lost physical health is only because you've been holding it away from yourself. And most of us have been holding it away from ourselves by our beliefs and our continuing statements that it isn't present. That we don't have it, we don't have enough of it, it isn't where we can put our hands on it, or whatever. Got a call the other day from a woman saying, I need your help, I've lost my keys. Oh. No, nothing that is yours can be absent, right? If it is yours to use for everyone, your fulfillment and everyone else's, it is not absent. You have not lost them. Right?
I have a situation I need to ask a question about.
Yes.
I drove into my driveway 2 days ago and realized that my hose and my hand sprayer was no longer on the stand by the faucet.
Oh.
And this morning I walked out and realized that the main host hose, the feeder hose to my drip irrigation system, the big, huge commercial one, is no longer there.
Mm-hmm. No, was no longer there.
Yeah.
Hear the difference?
Yeah,
Yes.
was no longer there. So I stood in the driveway for the longest time trying to understand why I wasn't seeing what I knew to be there. And asking, why am I experiencing this lack, this without that seems to be right in front of me?
Excellent.
Well, it didn't show up.
All right, thank you. The reason I said excellent, it was a perfect teaching. You never want to ask why.
Oh.
Why reinforces the problem,
Yeah.
the situation, right? Why is this situation reinforces the situation?
I asked what I was supposed to learn.
Ditto.
Okay.
Ditto. Okay. If it is mine to use for my fulfillment and the fulfillment of all the beings around me, it is not absent. It is not absent. That's why lesson 2 is so important. Our first response is to negate the possibility of something being absent. That's what lesson 2 is about. There is no absence. There is an appearance of absence. There is an appearance of shortage of time, but time is relative. It generally stretches, right? And it's stretched a lot for us today. Not quite enough, but almost. And that's my work to do, right? All right. And so the absence, the appearance of absence is a function of belief system, all right? I happen to know that your space has been totally secure and safe all these years. There has not been a moment of concern. And for some reason, there is a moment of concern. And and this incident is bringing it up, right?
And so what I did was continue to stand in the driveway and say, bless wherever this is, because it's doing good somewhere.
Okay, and that's an important lesson, but that's not what Emma teaches.
Okay.
All right? That's what a lot of people who learned from Emma have translated it into, but it's not what she teaches. Let's go forward and see if we can figure out what she teaches. You did good, okay? So the top of 20, I can read, 23. Others are flattered by being told how much more they know than another, but as omniscience is omnipresent, there is no way for one person to know more than any other. Okay, we choose to focus on different things, and so we're aware of some things that are different, but nobody knows more than anyone else. All right? I tell you that all that stands between you and your good, which belongs to you and which you ought to have, is your own idea of the absence of, and I'm going to say that good. The absence of that or any good. That's why the absence of good. Okay, so if you have any good in your life, peace, hoses, that appears to be absent, there is a belief that says it is absent. Or there is a belief that said it's possible for it to not be here. Or there is a belief that says I live in a world where these things happen. Or there is a belief that says that, so-and-so needs it more than I do, which gets us back to that other one. Some people are more blessed than others, all right? Everyone has everything they need. When they know that, they don't have to do any of the taking. It's part of why I talk about the empire culture being a culture of takers. They don't know this. Okay, we got a bunch of 18-month to 30-month-olds running the culture.
Yeah.
Who say, mine. I don't care whether you want to play with it, it's mine. And that's what we do. And that's what we are outgrowing in this time in our lives. I'd like to be hopeful about, because I know it. So the next, I'm going to skip down 2 more paragraphs. You put away the idea of absence, separation, or apartness the first time you speak the truth of your idea of good. Tell the absolute truth about your idea of good. Is there any absence of it in the universe? Can that be absent in the universe? No. If good is God, there is no place where it is not present. If my hose is God, there is no place where it is not present, therefore it is present here and now. So I'm going to share a story about a Christian Scientist who was trying to deal with this. He came into his apartment in San Francisco. This would have been, I heard the story, so probably late 80s, early 90s. Came into his apartment and the door was unlocked and there were a lot of bare wires where the day when he left and there was a lot of equipment. And so he called the police and he got caught up in all of that, and then he went, wait a minute, what am I doing? And he sat down on his bed and he said, there is no absence. There cannot be. My equipment is a thought. That thought is part of my mind. That thought is part of my beingness. It can't be separated from me. And he did that kind of thing over and over again. And then he did the other piece. And he did that for quite a while. And when he could relax into that, the police called him and they said, well, it seems we think we've caught the person, and the person says they've sold it to a fence, and it's almost impossible to find anything once it's gone to a fence. So he realized he had to do more work. So he sat down and he said, there is no possibility that anyone can take or would take anything that is mine. How can they take my thought? This is my thought. This is my me. This is my beingness. They can't take, no one can take it. No one can be called a thief. No one can, and he did that over and over again, and there is no way that that which is mine could not be part of my life. And the next day the cops called him and they said, we can't believe this, but we found that all of your equipment, we're delivering it this afternoon. And the next day he had all of his equipment in place. And they said, We don't know how it happened, but there was a fluke and we couldn't charge the guy who took it. Nobody could be called a thief.
I have a question.
To the word.
To the word.
I have a question. So when does that happen? That's not right. I'm thinking of my own experience with the lost keys. And they weren't lost, of course they weren't lost. And once I could calm down long enough to say, okay, there's no way they can possibly, there isn't any loss. They're mine, therefore they're here. So, but it took 2 months. 2 months before I could put my hand in the same place where they always were, and there they were.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
so I want to know. Can we just compress this?
Yeah, you needed a miracle to compress time.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so what may have held them away from you was your kicking yourself.
I may have kicked myself.
What may have held them away from you was the fact that you were kicking yourself
Oh,
around.
absolutely. And it was raining and I was wet.
And you were miserably
I was
unhappy.
just
and
very
angry.
unhappy.
Yes.
And I was also scared.
Yeah, and for a couple of months you were going, how could I do this to myself?
Yes.
That energy is what kept them away from you.
Okay then.
Get that?
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Easy to say.
Yeah, I know. If I hadn't been, it was the energy of frustration that I had over the reason for the delays that made it so I got delayed today. I could feel it and see it. And so I had to work to be free of that energy in order to be able to scoot in, as early as I did. Yes.
So I'll give an example too. So I have this old belief that I'm absent-minded, And so when I lose things around the house, my husband will say, oh, it's going to turn up, and he just says it all the time, and which kind of makes me go, oh, and how do you know? And inevitably, he walks around the house for a while, looks around, and finds it, whether it's my credit card in the laundry or whatever, puts his hand on it, and I just want to shake him. He really believes, oh, it's going to turn up. It's not lost. Where I have that old faith, which I've worked on, whatever, but, it's still in there somewhere.
Right.
But I'm absent-minded.
Right.
So,
What is your belief system?
yeah.
What is your belief system?
You were.
Okay.
Yes, right, right.
All right, next paragraph. Okay, our good is omnipresent, everywhere present, all the time. Yes? God, our good is spirit. Spirit is free, untrammeled, unhindered, irresistible, here and now. Okay, to say that compels me to say what Larry got it. There is no delay in the way my good comes to me. I need not wait. Then you say, so then she's talking about the specific goods, okay, life. When you get it, there is no absence of life, and you feel life in all its fullness and vitality. And you can use vitality too, if that helps, because there's energized life, right? There is no absence of that anywhere. Then when something appears to be withering in some way, you can go, no, it's not possible, because there is no absence of that, right? And the next one is substance, okay? Your free spirit, the paragraph, if you speak often the words, there is no absence of substance. Your free spirit will soon feel totally separated from the delusion of miseries that others around you may experience. We won't count on you. All things take on an enduring substance. So in the position you're in, you get to know that they're on this path and they have everything they need for this path. And when they're ready to shift to the next path, everything they need is right there. There is no absence of substance, and you get to help be part of that. And I love that part of what you do. Yeah. All right. The next paragraph, if God is out of intelligence, then intelligence is omnipresent. Why does anyone not seem to be intelligent? Only because of the belief that the human species keeps spreading about that intelligence is absent from some spots or places. Okay? So you must say there is no absence of intelligence, and as you do so, you may suddenly feel very clear and intelligent. Okay? I have a colleague that I've worked with for decades now, and he's starting to feel like, oh, I'm reaching that point. I go, no. And he finally came back to me last week, and just a couple of days ago, and he said, you know, I was doing this work and I got that I don't have to I can just access it, and this is how I can do it. He got that he could access the infinite intelligence. Yeah, he wasn't any more living in that belief that he was having to do without, and that it was absent, okay? So there is no absence of life, substance, or intelligence in omnipresent good, okay? Nothing straightens out our thinking like looking at all appearances of evil boldly, I'm on the middle of 24, with the conviction that there is nothing but good, and telling all things there is only one substance, and that is spirit, only one life, and that is God, only one mind, and that is God, right? When we look at any appearance, and that is literally anything we can sense with the five senses is an appearance, right? It is the universe showing up in the form we are ready to experience. It's an appearance. All right, negating the limitations of matter. The limitations of matter. Matter is limited, burdened. Matter is all the hindrance we know. Yet God, my omnipresent good, is free spirit, not burdened with transient matter. Okay? You cannot say that in your idea of good there's no absence without coming straight to the realization that all matter is delusion built by some belief in the absence of good. Okay, I have this stuff because I believe I have this body that needs to be supported, and I'm absent, my support is absent, so I have stuff to support me. Right? We have money because we believe that the things we need to live on are only available through money. And if we believe those things are absent, we will believe the money is absent too, generally, right? So it's our belief that we are not fully supported, supplied, and nurtured, that we are not fully energized and alive and alert and enthusiastic. It's those beliefs that create the delusion of matter. All right, it's a tough one, all right? William, in that, let's see, second paragraph, Spanish mystic Spinoza said, I choose to know spirit rather than to imagine matter. Okay, and she names a number of others. William Ellery Channing, who helped establish Unitarianism, said that since the beginning of time in philosophical study, men have held that all is spirit and matter is but an appearance. And say that aloud in most Unitarian fellowships, you'll probably get booted out. Or at least they'll go, well, we appreciate your individuality, but we don't accept that. All right, so matter is but an appearance. The substance is real, taking the apparent form of the matter you are seeing, or feeling, or tasting, or touching. The substance, the quantum essence of all that is, that exists regardless of if there are galaxies or planets or tables. You know, that substance is, it is real. It is taking a form in alignment with the nature of the consciousness of the observers. Yeah.
So every time the astro science looks for something new out there in the universe, they find it.
Bingo.
Because, okay.
You got it.
Because they believed it was there.
Right.
Even though they say, we've never seen it, and then years, and then, oh, we see it.
It fits our theories, therefore it is there. Okay? Things in the body. It fits your theories, therefore it is there. Right?
Yeah. So be careful how you theorize.
Right? Right. So, yeah, so as we begin to register that the stuff is not what is real, that is just showing me what my consciousness is right now, what my thinking and feeling and belief system has been for the last several weeks or years or decades, this is what's showing up now. All right. Thank you. Next paragraph. Matter and its limiting laws are the result of looking downward with our innerversion, focusing on loss and lack, believing in separation from the oneness of God, and by this constant attention, our inward vision has generated a fiction. The top of 25. That paragraph says it all. Now, the Sumerian creation story, the Taoist creation story, and a half a dozen other cultures, but those we have written down, Sumerian and Tao, both say there is this beingness that has no form, and Troward lays on this too. There is this formless beingness that begins to come into awareness of self and begins to contemplate self, and out of that emerges something that begins to be form. And then that form and the formlessness interact, and matter is the result of that. The 10,000 things. Tiamat is the other one, the Sumerian, the Tiamat story. The formlessness that is all that is extends, comprehends itself. And this is the opening of the creative process in the individual in Thomas Troward. Comprehends, contemplates itself, and in the process of contemplation, form happens, right? If I'm formless, how am I going to contemplate self, right? I have to extend self into some form to contemplate what is. So now I have form, right? And that's the beginning of many creation stories in the universe, at least on this planet. All right. So the next paragraph, matter is the appearance that results from our thinking that good is absent and takes form from our silence as to what and where God, our good, truly is. So the more we know that our God, our good, our true good, the more we know it's present, the less we have to rely on matter and material forms. So there is, in the Hindu tradition, in the Kriya Yoga tradition particularly, there is the presence of a guy who was on the planet in the 1400s, and when he was about 18, he reached a level of enlightenment such that he went off to the Himalayas with his loincloth on, and ever since then shows up periodically when people are ready to have him talk with them or be there or motivate them or inspire them. He's still there, right?
Wow.
And every now and then someone finds him, and so he has a group of about 10 people that go into whatever space he's going into, and they come out of it, and they might be in a cave, or they might be in a palace, or they might be walking the streets of wherever, and then they go back into that formless space. And if you haven't read the Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East from the 1920s, it's a very beautiful set of illustrations of beings who are able to be that way, outside of time and space, and then coming into time and space, and then outside, and then coming in. So matter is an appearance that results from our thinking. As soon as you begin to get that, then a lot of things become much more malleable in the world. They not only appear more readily, and they stick around longer if you choose to, or they stick around for as long as you need them, and then they move on, right? Yeah. Things work much more smoothly. The next paragraph, because the human mind sometimes feel that its good is here, near, and sometimes it is far off, the material forms we experience are changeable. Even the regularity of the seasons may be seen as resulting from this periodic habit of thought. We get tired of being hot, so it starts to get cold. And we get tired of being cold, and the sunshine happens.
Question. So is global warming the result of feeling our good is far off?
Yep.
If there really is a shift in human consciousness, wouldn't these global issues show some kind of improvement?
Yep.
They will.
And they are.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the things that is happening is that places that were not possible to grow things on, people are growing things on. So some places that were a wasteland because they couldn't be grown on because it wasn't warm enough or there weren't a long enough growing season, now are places where people can have that. And most of those places are places where people are actually living in a relatively harmonious emotionally and spiritually satisfying way. They're growing grapes in Sweden right now.
Wow.
Really? I missed that article.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They've now got an almost 10-week growing season, and it's long enough to ripen grapes.
Wow.
Yeah. I know. And so that's, so there is that shift. So for them, there's less of the deep, dark winter because they're more in the light, if you will. They're more able to experience the benefits of the light. In the Middle East, it continues to be what it is, right? And the temperatures continue to soar. And notice that our sun belt and our border are about the same place, and here in the Americas, so we're going to see some interesting shifts and changes around the world because of that. And as all of us begin to know what we're teaching here, then the shift will happen worldwide. So when people ask me as a futurist, well, when's it going to happen that all the ice melts? Because that's the question, right? I show them a picture of what it would look like if all the ice melted. And then they go, so when's that going to be? And I go, nobody knows. It could be next year. It could be 50 years. It could be never, depending on who and what we are and how we are being, right? But yes. All right.
We have the power.
So the fourth paragraph on 25, matter therefore is transient and unreliable. It may be something that pleases you very much, or it may bring you darkness and great void because of loss. So matter must be illusion, because the good we are seeking is eternal, right? It is constant. It is, it's here. So as God, Emmanuel, it must be constantly present with us. The substance is, the form is changeable. That's what they mean in Sanskrit when they say it's Maya. The stuff is Maya. It is changeable. It is plastic. It is moldable. It is not eternal. It is not where you want to put your energy. You want to put your energy on the eternal, the substance, the spirit, the presence, the love, the beauty, the truth. All of that stuff, and that state of being that you get into when you feel it, So there is no reality to matter. All is spirit. And then she says, when you speak this truth, top of the next page, we speak this truth, and the power of spirit within us rises in its divine substantiality, and every material thing becomes subject to it. Our persistent declaration and understanding, and you can put feeling in there, that there is no reality to the matter around us will dissolve any material condition. Okay? It will dissolve things that you do not want, and it might dissolve things you're attached to as well. Whatever seemed most real to you, next paragraph, will be the first to disappear when you deny the reality of matter. If, for instance, cash money is something you're clinging to and you say there's no reality matter, your wallet will begin to be empty. if friends are your idols, you'll no longer see them around in material form, and so on. So don't put your attachment on the material stuff. It doesn't matter how much cash there is in my wallet, the substance that supports me, supply and support, is always present. I always have more than enough supply to be and do that which is mine to be and do.
So amazing. This just, as a person who grew up the way, in always constant fear that, and now I'm getting the idea that.
If you really look back, all the time you were afraid of what might happen,
yes.
you were fine.
Oh yeah, I was fine. Right. Yeah. 90%. Nah.
Yeah. And I was sitting there not knowing where the next $50 was coming from with two teenage girls in an empty house, right? And I knew that every moment of my life to that moment, that even in that moment, I had everything I needed. And I got it. And I've never not had what I needed. Never. To be and do what is mine to do. And be. Woo! Blows me away. But that's how the universe works. The culture says, be afraid, be very afraid.
And if we forget, there's the guy at Fred Meyer holding the sign. help me.
Oh.
Help me.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I do is I go inside, is this mine to do or not? And generally, it's mine to do if there is some object
Sure.
in my car that wants to be given. I gave a tarp away a few days ago. Yeah, I fill a gas can now and then. Yeah, that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Not cash.
You know, for me sometimes, I mean, when I'm doing this, and it's, I mean, I term it, my ego goes, oh no, you know, what about this? And
Yeah.
what about this? And what
Yeah.
about this? And then I just, you know, have to, you know, reinforce my good.
That's right.
But it's there, you know,
Right.
that voice. you
That
know.
other belief system
Yeah.
is really
It's-
working on
And
it.
it's strong. Sometimes the more one moves, the more I move
Mhm.
into this light, it will taunt me
Mhm.
in a way, you know, and then I just, not you, you know, not you, not this thought, this thought.
Right. And so that's part of why I encourage people to go through a process to find out where that thought came from. And forgive me and everybody else that helped me
Right.
develop that.
Yes, yes.
Because if I can get all of us into the light of dissolving that thought,
Yes,
then I'm not having that battle anymore.
yes, right, right. And I've been doing the Ho'oponopono lately because we just read the book in the book
Yeah.
club again, and that's a good one for me.
Good.
Because it's quick.
Woohoo! All right. Yeah, and if it works for you at that level, but sometimes you need to go beyond it too.
Right. I've had enough therapy. I'll do Ho'oponopono.
All right.
I know what they are. They're
Very
just-
good, very good. So, the next thing that usually comes up is evil. What about all the evil in the world? What about all the people doing the terrible things they do? All right, first point, first bullet. If good is everywhere present, then evil is nowhere present. How can you have both of them in the same molecule at the same time? No mixture, right. If good is all power, there can be no power of any of these things she calls evil. And she calls sin, sickness, death, absence, all that stuff, is what she calls evil. There can be no power. Governments, totalitarian fascist states can have no power when good is the only power, when people claim the good. What happens is they go into fear and they give their power away. That's how fascism works. That's how totalitarianism works. And as someone pointed out, somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s, the Soviet Union, folks woke up and said there is no Soviet Union, and there was no Soviet Union, and totalitarianism in the form of USSR dissolved because they claimed a different way of being. Yeah, isn't that cool? It was an agreement, and when they let go of the agreement, it didn't exist anymore. Right? If at any time any group of people says, this is stupid, why are we doing this? And stops doing it, the institution that they're supporting doesn't exist anymore. Right? And I can think of a number of things that were like that along the way in my life, and you probably can too. All right, so can there be, after the bullets, can there be any evil mixed in with our highest idea of good? Is in our idea of good, there can be no absence, that means there can be no evil. The only possible cause for evil is the idea of absence. That is all the evil there is, a belief in separation from God, our good. So, if I believe that in order for me to be okay, I have to take this, whatever this is. I'm going to take your glasses for a moment. I have to have this in order to be okay. That's coming from a belief in separation, isn't it? That I don't already have my good. Someone was just sharing a little bit of that. They retired and now they're just on Social Security. And they went into panic, and they were in some place that had little packets of things, and they said, oh, I'll just take a few for when I need it later, when I won't have enough money. The next day they were back putting them back in place. But wow, right? That's a belief in absence. All taking comes from that belief, that feeling, that knowing I don't have it, or I'm not going to have it, that sense of that. But that's not truth, is it? The truth is always, as long as we have been alive, we have always had exactly what we needed for each moment. Even my friends who have been in the foxhole, even my friends who have been, caught in a submarine for too long underwater, they've always had everything they needed for that moment. It's hard for us to grasp that. Right? Even when we're in labor having a baby. And it feels like we're not going to survive another moment of this. We have everything we need to get through. All right. Thank you. So in my idea of good, there is no mixture of evil. Of course, how could there? It's to tell the truth. Yeah. And that truth will work freedom from all appearances. So 27, experiencing freedom. All reasoning has an effect. It controls our being and our perceived environment. Perceived environment. So our whole life conditions change when we change our lines of reasoning. Case in point over in the corner. And for me too, when I had a particular belief that had to do with how the world worked and what my life was like in the world, and it was not serving me. It had created all kinds of distress in me and in other people, and in the lives of the people around me. And one day I finally got it, that belief was there, and I did the work to undo the belief, and my life was transformed henceforth. It has never been the same since. Every part of all the stuff that had been yucky because of that belief is gone, totally gone. It's just amazing. Our whole life conditions change. And I didn't have to do anything to anyone or say a word to anyone. I just had to clean it up in here. And then it started showing up out there. Yes. We get to be free. All right. In the middle of that paragraph, you begin to judge not by appearances, but by the truth behind them. As you do so, many conditions slip away almost instantaneously. In the next paragraph, if you have poor eyesight, for example, it became so because of some little notion you persistently held. In the footnote there, Louise Hay says, if a child is wearing glasses, I know there's something here she doesn't want to see. All right. And it may be about themselves. More likely, it's what's going on in the family. Maybe what's going on in the neighborhood. Yeah. All right. I have the first person I got to know who was hard of hearing only didn't hear certain things.
Selective deafness.
Exactly. And that's the same thing. Yeah. Not everyone's, but from somewhere there is something that we don't want to be hearing, or we don't want to be seeing, or we don't believe we can see clearly. I'm not clear about that. Well, how am I going to read if I'm not clear? Right? It's fuzzy. Right? If I am clear about it, it's going to be there. So as people do this work, your new reasoning makes it impossible to think that way anymore. The poor eyesight falls away, the good eyesight is restored. And sometimes this happens instantaneously, and sometimes it takes longer for the full realization to be felt. Normally, as people are doing this work, they use weaker and weaker glasses, and sometimes they get away from using them entirely. Okay. Wouldn't that be nice? For the most part, however, the heart dwells with grief on the contrast between its own lot in life and the bounty of happiness that it realizes is near, yet seems far away. Okay. The heart may cling to its misery, but to focus the inward eye on lack is to increase that lack. I'm still at the bottom of 27, the italics, and in the sidebar. To focus the inward eye on lack is to increase that lack, which is why we don't ask why. All right. Why did this happen? Oh, yeah, I got to learn the lesson, and so. Yeah, all those things. Why, the why? No, that's focusing on the issue, isn't it? I'm going to focus on the good. All right, now the top of 28. There's a subtle principle that we are like that on which our inner eye is most often focused. For example, people often speak of how little they know, and finally, others think so too. Alright, she gives an example. The next paragraph, the last sentence in that paragraph. Similarly, those who focus on the erroneous thought that caused a neighbor's distress will find it landing on themselves. I have this, for me, I get instant karma on this one. Probably within minutes, definitely within 48 hours. The minute I'm focusing, as soon as I'm focusing on someone else's erroneous whatever, I end up experiencing some consequence of it.
So, going back to don't ask why, but if something good happens,
Mm-hmm.
can we look
Yes.
and say,
Yes,
"Oh,
contemplate.
that must be, that's why this is
Yes.
happening." So that's okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you're focusing on the good. Whatever you want to do, you can be analytical about it, you can be emotional about it, you can wax eloquently about it, you can do anything with the good. Not on the other side of the coin. Yeah, right. So as soon as that other side of the coin begins to rear its interesting tail, you go, no, I'm going to focus on the good.
But so often it seems to me that which I thought was not good at the time
Mm-hmm.
generally has been my highest good.
Precisely. I lost this job, I was miserable, I was unhappy about it, whatever. So, and then it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. Or the long illness that I went through turned out to be, yes. So the thing is that, the way I've understood it, the good was always there. The opportunity to do and be whatever we end up with after we've been through this nasty experience was always there. It tapped us at first and said, hey, I'm here. You want that? You want me? I'm here. And then it said, tapped us a little harder. I'm here. Do you want it? I'm here. I'm here. And it shook us up. And then finally it gave us a nasty experience so that we would finally turn toward it. That's been my experience and observation. I've said that about life's lessons, but it's the good saying, you could be over there. Oh no, I can't leave the job. You could be doing this instead of that. Oh, no. This is my income. I can't give this up. Any number of things. For me, it was, I had, all these responsibilities I had to do, right? All my musts and shoulds and oughts. I can't give up any of these until I was flat on my back and couldn't do any of them. And then I got it. Right? So, we all, yes. Yeah, and the story of the kid with the whose parents give him a pile of manure for Christmas. With all this shit, there's got to be a pony around here somewhere. Looking for the good in something is not saying, oh, there's got to be something in that pile of yuck that I need to search through to find it, right? It's it's saying, this is meaningless. It's an indicator of something, I don't know what, but I'm figuring it. I'm going to focus on the good. I'm going to focus on the presence of a pony. I'm going to focus on my life unfolding in a way that makes sense to me, that feels good and makes sense. Does that make sense? Does that address the issue?
I'm working on it.
I am too. We all are. It's part of being human. And you'll know that I'm done when there's a pile of clothes and nobody in it. All right. So, the reality, the last paragraph of that section, the reality of our being and our world is good. With this truth, we set ourselves free from all that we would call evil. Okay? Does it seem as if matter were reality? We know it is nothing. Does it seem as if there were absence of life in some things? We know life to be omnipresent. Does it seem as if intelligence were lacking? We know perfect intelligence is omnipresent. I'm right, this paragraph. All right, so that gets us to negating distress and pain. Okay, so this is the first place where it is really obvious that she's disagreeing with her teacher, Mary Baker Eddy. Because Mary Baker Eddy said, what this first paragraph says. Metaphysicians have called the fourth negation the denial of sensation. There is no sensation in matter. But she points out in the top of 29, yet if life were all delight and pleasure, nobody would have thought to deny the reality of sensation. So it's not that there's no sensation, right? Sensation is all those wonderful things. They're faculties of the spirit. As God is omnipresent spirit, says that sensation must be omnipresent good. Spirit, God is your sight, therefore you cannot lose your sight. God is your hearing, therefore you cannot lose your hearing. God is your skill in every faculty, therefore you cannot lose any faculty or any skill of any faculty, nor can any of the five senses bring you anything but good.
Wow.
That's
So,
the logic.
Hallelujah for my senses.
Right on. Okay? So, if earlier metaphysicians had trained their mind to the high truth, there is nothing to fear, for nothing is hurtful, they would never have met with these other sensations, the distressing sensations. If good is not absent, then the sensation of good is not absent, is the italic. Can coffee make spirit nervous? Can rum spoil the beauty of God? Really? Right? If, so it means it's why, a master can take a whole bunch of hits of whatever or drink a whole bunch of whatever and not have any effect, because there is nothing in this that can harm them. And they know it. It's like drinking water for them, right? Or the Bene Gesserit, or those of you who are Dune fans, they feel it coming in and they go, oh yeah, I know those molecules, bing, 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 and they transform into something wonderful in the body, right? So it's all good. It's all good. Right? So we can certainly point to very strong ideas held by some men that their good is absent when we say how miserably sick and poor they seem to be. The same is true for ourselves. That second to last paragraph. We can rise from pain and distress the way Job did in the Old Testament, making the grandest protest ever made. God, you know that I'm not wicked. Your hands made and fashioned me. This healed him. Okay? When he was, as Diane was singing earlier, I am as God created me, right, that one. When he got that, he was well. Now, this next paragraph is very important because it's contrary to everything we've ever been taught. If you were in great trouble, you couldn't get help from God merely by begging for help, no matter how many times you've been told to do so. For that which we call God works only in truth. Nor could you be healed by repeating your tales of woe, for there is no healing or illumination in descriptions of evil. In fact, the description of our troubles multiplies them. This is why the great American game of Ain't It Awful has brought us to the point where we are now.
Ooh.
It came into being after World War I. It was not normal World War II. It was not normal discourse in America to complain prior to World War II. The advertising on Madison Avenue was the beginning of focusing us on what we don't have, what doesn't work, what our problems are. Exactly.
Because then they can sell you what
Right.
will.
What you don't need.
Exactly.
Follow
Exactly.
the money.
Thank you.
So normal discourse, if you read anything from the 20s and 30s, very rarely would people sit down to tea and start talking about how unhappy they were around it. They would be talking about interesting projects, interesting books, interesting plays, interesting people. They might be talking about other people in the neighborhood so everyone knows where everyone is and all what they're up to. But sitting around and saying, oh, my arthritis, or oh, no.
Which is interesting considering that encompasses the Great Depression.
Yes, I know. So what we have done we've created a nation of complainers who are focusing on the downside, on the lack, who experience more and more downside, more and more distress.
And look what we
Right.
got.
Prior to World War II, the norm was focus on the blessings, focus on what we are creating, focusing on what we are accomplishing, focus on what's possible here, focus on where we could be, what could be unfolding in what we are experiencing. Oh, we could have this marvelous winter Christmas pageant, or, oh, we could be doing such and so, And as people got tired of it, they would be, moving on to the next thing, because there was always someone ready to pick up whatever it was, instead of hanging on to it, because if I don't do it, it won't get done. I hate doing it, but if I don't do it, it won't get done.
So do you think it was easier to get people to volunteer then?
That was part of living. It was part of your
Right.
entertainment. There wasn't a TV set to entertain you. There weren't
Or a
computer
radio.
games. Well, in the 30s there was a radio, but prior to the 30s we didn't even have radios, right? So going out over and helping a neighbor was actually a way to take care of oneself. Right? I made a bunch of cookies. I don't want to sit around here being bored. I'm going to take some over to my neighbor. Right? I got my ironing done first. I think I'll go have tea with so-and-so, right? Yeah, whatever it is.
So, when I moved to Florence, I noticed that this town is the most volunteering town I've ever run across. I mean, that's the natural order of things, people volunteer. Are we going back to the 30s?
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. And some of it is because the word retirement usually means I know I have enough. And once I know I have enough, then I can go out and enhance my consciousness and the consciousness of everyone around me. And the bulk of people in Florence are retired. Yeah. Isn't that fun? So prior to, again, World War II, nobody retired. You earned enough money. If you went in the military, the police force, or whatever for your 20 years, or worked for a factory for 20 years, it was to build up enough capital to go off and have your own, whatever it was, your own business, your own company, your own farm, your own whatever. And then you would work that until you were done working anything, because the mind body was just saying, enough, let's go rest now, okay? This idea of being good, strong, powerful, intellectually capable beings that are not working to create something, build something, is very, very new in humanity. It's, so we have a different thing happening here. And I'm really curious to see how long it lasts. Yeah. All right, shall we move forward? Cleansing the soul. A lie must seem to be reasonable to seem anything at all. You would not believe in an obviously insane man who told you your mother stole his wallet.
Sorry.
Okay, but you would probably accept the reasonableness of a well-dressed elderly gentleman's statement that a young gangster had done so. So when great and learned preachers have stood in high pulpits and talked about a great being called God who made a terrible Satan to tempt little children to steal and lie, most people have accepted the plausibility of their statements. Thank heavens our generation didn't buy that one very long. But her generation, that was what they grew up with. Okay, so what she was having to overcome with these books and the people she was teaching was a very real presence of a thought form called Satan.
Oh, wow.
And the very real idea of a thought form called the judging, vengeful God. All right, that was as real to them as this table is. All right, yeah. So she had to undo that. We have other things she has to undo. Right. All right, so that's a lie. The next paragraph. Such men have blamed all evil on sin, but sin is only a mistaken idea about the universe and who we are in it. This is all the sin that anyone has ever committed, being mistaken about their nature and living from that mistake. The truth erases the mistakes. So the word sin in Latin means without. In Spanish means without. In Italian means without. And in French, the sin of sin, the sin, becomes sans, S-A-N-S, but it's the same word, means without. And, you know, I think I can probably find 5 or 6 other languages. So the word simply means I'm operating in the universe as if God were not here, as if I were without the good.
Isn't it an archery term that means missing the mark?
In the Greek New Testament, which was not the Aramaic in which it was spoken, in the Greek New Testament, they didn't have a word for sin. So they used peccatoribus, which means missing the mark. Or, you know, you're an archery, you're shooting a bow and it didn't hit the bullseye. That's all it means. In the Hebrew, it is trespass. It's step off the path. Accidentally step on someone's field instead of the path. There is nothing like what all of Europe was taught for the better part of 2,000 years, and all of the Americans are being taught for this part of beyond 2,000 years in the Bible. Nothing. Isn't that interesting? Okay? So it doesn't exist. It's a non-entity, it's a non-issue. And almost everyone reaches a stage in their spiritual development where they get that you cannot be separated from the divine. Universalism says that. Universalism says that divinity is always present and accepts all beings back into it. That there is no way you can separate yourself from what divinity is. Nothing you can do.
Back into it, as if at some point you weren't in it?
Well, yeah, you believe you are. Right. So you feel the lovingness where you weren't necessarily. Yes. Thank you. Is that clear? All right. Those who gaze upward toward the good, in the next paragraph, learn that it's a liberating act. They feel a fresh hope. And have you noticed that? That's what we got this last week. Okay. So, and then there's nothing hurtful. It's the bottom of 30 and then 31. Facing thee, there is nothing to fear, for nothing shall by any means hurt me, says the Gospel of Luke the physician. Some of the documents from the period of the persecution of Christians in the Roman Empire talk of the Christians being, down there in the Colosseum and the lions being loosed on them, or the archers shooting at them, and they're standing there and they're welcoming the angels in the form of the lions, and they're welcoming the blossoms. They're going, oh, and they're seeing flowers come at them, not arrows. And the body drops, but they're not in it because they're totally focused on the good.
Wow. I have to vote.
Yes, you do. Thank you.
I'm so glad that's going to be posted.
One of the comments I wrote in the margin over there, I had heard this at the time I went through here. Believing it won't work is just as effective as believing it will.
Absolutely. That's right.
Unfortunately.
Yes. Right.
We do seem to be better at that.
Right. Okay, so at the top of 31, that paragraph, but no insistence that one is victorious can bring victory if the inward vision is still resting on the apparent misfortune. So, yeah, you can say the words all the time, but if you're actually looking at the issue, forget it, right? It's the inner visions where the inner vision is focused. And so for me, that's why I use trees against the sky, because it's really hard to focus downward on distress if I'm using trees against the sky to remind me to look up, to raise my consciousness to a higher level. That's one of the reasons, besides its beauty. The light is on that wall, the other side of the wall, in the middle.
Here?
Yeah, go through there, halfway down the wall, on the right side.
See, yeah.
Good. All right. So we can go through this, but I'm going to go down. There's this paragraph describing Carlyle's experience. You'll enjoy that. But the fifth regular negation is negating all of these things. There is no sin, there is no sickness, and there is no death. Okay, where is there no sin, sickness, or death? In God. And where is God?
Everywhere.
Right on. So there cannot be illness, there cannot be distress, there cannot be death, because it's all God. There can be transient matter changing form. And that was a huge thing for me. You know, when my marriage was falling apart, I got the love is continuing, the form of the relationship is changing. Right? And then I began to realize that with the people who are leaving the planet. Their body isn't here. The form of the relationship has changed, but it's continuing. Right? That which is the essence of it is here, continually, always. But the matter may change form. And then you start getting into reincarnation. It gets really interesting. All right. So we shall see, in the middle of that last paragraph, we shall see far less sickness if the idea of people as being undivided wholeness of spirit is real to our mind. We shall be utterly free from seeing death in any form under any circumstances if we appreciate that in omnipresent life there can be no death. And this is a woman who both she and her teacher and many of her students have had people who are declared dead not be after these people have sat with them.
Wow.
Okay? They have known life to be so fully present that that person got up. Yeah, yeah. So this is not an abstract concept in these people's minds. Okay. Now those are the 5 general negations. Those are the negations that apply anywhere, anytime, with any being. It's just, that's how it is, folks. If you negate these things, if you say, this is not true, this is nothing, I dissolve this idea, I focus on the good, any human being can do that. All of us have what she calls our personal negations. There are two concepts, 2 ideas that we have that have kept us from experiencing our fullness. Now, it actually, in our generation, it may be more than 2, but in her generation, it was 2, okay? So, her first example is the Greek philosopher Plato achieved much by using these 5, but they didn't touch his character. He rejected matter, he rejected evil, he rejected all we reason against, but he didn't refuse his own prejudices. He had spoken of one life, one mind, one good, and then spoke of woman as the failure of blind nature. It was a cultural norm in his time and place to think that a woman had no soul and was not capable of doing the important things that only a man could do.
Wow.
Now, these were the men who would marry and have kids, you know, their wives would have kids, and then the men would go and hang out in the marketplace while their women managed the business of the household. Right. Thank you, Linda. All right. So, you know, that was their thing. That was how they were dealing with it, you know, and that was the norm. And so it never even occurred to him, and, you know, forest and trees. Never occurred to him to think anything else. Right? So we all have something like that. It never occurred to us, or we made a decision like the one I described earlier, that when we were 2 or 3 or 4, about how the life is, and we've been living it out and not even realizing how it was limiting us and bringing distress in our own lives and in the lives of people around us. Okay? Yes. Okay. Too often, the last paragraph on that page, too often we see people who yield to some trivial temptation while thinking and talking high science, like the woman who, you know, got scared and grabbed a few packets of stuff that she hadn't, you know, it wasn't part of what she had exchanged for. If you are careless about paying your debts, your moral cord isn't vibrating to some word of negation that you need to hear. If you use other people's property roughly, you do not catch the word that vibrates the word of honor. If you do things that inconvenience or tire others, then the salt of justice has not been sprinkled into the spring of your character. Any number of things like that, okay? Top of the next paragraph, that belief may be so subtle that we're not really aware of its presence, right? In that case, we must look at our lives to discover the results deriving from it. And that's what it took for me. I had to see this pattern that was happening and go, oh my goodness, I must believe that. Oh, I remember when I made that decision. I remembered the moment that I made that decision when I was not quite 3 years old.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had lived from it my whole life until 15 years ago. And it's been different ever since. Yay! Okay. So if you don't see it, if you can't just go, oh yeah, I know what it is. Yeah, look around. I had a neighbor, he was actually a colleague who moved into the neighborhood, and we had chosen to live in an inner city neighborhood. He'd never lived in an inner city neighborhood. And he moved into our neighborhood, and he didn't know quite how to deal with this. He'd grown up where you manicured your lawn, right? And no one around us manicured their lawn. They were lucky to get it mowed once a month, you know? And so it was really rough on him. You know, he couldn't understand this until he got so sick he couldn't manicure his lawn. Right? So his judgment on himself and everyone around him played out in having to live in the very environment that he had despised other people for living. Does that make sense? You see that? Whoa, that was hard. That was hard for all of us, okay? So, for example, a habit of running others down will run some healthy part of our body down into disease. And as we speak of all people from the standpoint of being spirit, life, and substance, instead of from the appearance, such sickness in us will be cured. There are two particular negating statements that each individual must discover and speak. They address your own moral character and delight your own heart. So take two unloving tendencies you've observed. Might have something to do with calling yourself absent-minded or aging. And
So
then,
those things still sneak up though.
Yeah,
I mean,
they do.
I know them consciously and I practice along, but wow, do they sneak up? And you know, that was a flip thing. I said, oh, I had enough therapy. I know where it comes from. Well, I do know where it comes from. I learned at 3 or somewhere not to trust.
oh, lovely.
You know, and so then when I start to really trust the universe, that old thing comes up, you know, like gangbusters.
I got it.
You know, and so give me some words of wisdom on that.
Well, let's read the rest of this
Okay.
paragraph. There might be, okay? All right. Take two, in the middle of that second full paragraph on 33, take two unloving tendencies that you've observed as a consequence of believing in the absence of good, and tell God that they are in truth no part of you, because God himself fashioned you out of the Spirit. Say that as you were born in God's own goodness, you have never had any trait of character that could result in the absence of good. As God is never absent, God must be here in your own mind now.
Now, yeah,
Absent-minded.
yeah.
Mind of God.
Yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
I love the way the language works.
Uh-huh.
Okay? You may take a habit, next paragraph, of scolding people far worse than their wrongdoings and proclaim that it's the offspring of spirit. You do not chide or condemn anybody. It's part of omnipotent intelligence. You cannot hurt people by your speech or action. You cannot have a habit of jealousy. Cannot feel easily offended. You can't resent the way people act toward you. You're not envious of anyone for any reason. You're not cowardly about being blamed. You're not stingy. You're never glad to think your enemy's unfortunate. And you would never feel discouraged when you've tried and not succeeded. I understand. I can relate to some of this, all right? All right. You can see, too, that the, quote, sin of being ungrateful for your possessions or your education or your lot in life melts down and leaves you the master you were when you first came forth from divine mind as a thought of divine mind. So you say, no, not that. This is what's true. All of this is what's true. And I really, really do encourage, if you got any emotions around where that got started, let yourself feel them, and write it all down, burn it, and say, I'm done with it. This set of ideas I cannot have in my life anymore. I'm done with it. And if you need more details, get my book, Making the World Go Away. Okay, then last paragraph under 34 is very important. Now, the thought that lies between you and the experience of your good is as apt to be one of your virtues as one of your vices. The bottom of 33 moving to the top of 34. One of your virtues as well as your vices. Suppose you're very prompt in paying your debts and take pride in speaking of it, and takes pride in it, speaking scornfully of those who don't. This pride in your virtue hides the virtue. One good day you may believe yourself unable to pay your debts. Believe yourself unable to pay your debts. It's not that you're not unable to. You're not able to, okay? It's not possible for you to not be able to pay your debts. Because your good, your supply, is omnipresent. But you may believe it. You may have the appearance of it because of old stuff that's coming up in the moment. Yeah? All right. Let that pride, the second paragraph, let that pride in your virtue be eliminated from your character. Take yourself in hand, looking up to heaven, resolve to reason your special traits out of your character. Okay? Doing this for ourselves has a mysterious influence on the world around us. As we negate our special prejudices, sickness falls away from the people we meet. Death comes and looks into our homes and hurries away like a dream. Sin falls from our neighbor's characters, whatever we call it, okay? And our experience becomes what we have focused on. We do not need to wait to be free. As God is free now, so we are free, here, now, and forever. Yes. Amen. All right, so lesson 2, very straightforward. There are 5 things in the world that aren't true, that we were taught were true. We need to practice having them be true. And then we need to find 2 things that are kind of at the core of any distress in our life, in our personal lives or in our communities, and put those down and do the negating process that's listed on lesson 2, the practice. On 35, study, reason out, and acknowledge the truth of the 5 general negating denials. Okay? Why is there no sickness? Why is there no sin? Why is there no death? Reason it out till you're comfortable with it. And if you can't get to there, at least repeat it and see what comes up and write that down. And one of the things that I like to use with this one and with lesson 3 is write the sentence and then write all the stuff that comes up. There is no evil. All the stuff that, oh yeah, there is. See this, and what about that? And what about that? And what about that? Write the sentence again. There is no evil. And you can put, there's no evil in my life. There is no evil in my world. There is no evil in this world. There is no evil on planet Earth. There is no evil in God's universe. You can make it, as specific or as general as you want. There is none. And then write all the other stuff that comes up, good, bad, and ugly. And then write it again. Write it again until you feel the truth of it. That could be an effective practice for this week. Okay? And at the end of lesson 1, there was a daily practice, and that was to list your goods, because in the future, starting this week, you won't be listing your good every day. And here in lesson 2, there's another one. Okay? Daily, look to the heights and acknowledge the truth that as God is good, good is God, and God is omnipresent, you reject the common feeling of the absence of good. As God is free now, you are free now. So there is this thing on the last page, 36, the next page. She calls them the Psalms of Remission. Okay? She pulled it out of a text that I don't exactly know where she got it, but I think it's related to Psalm 110. I'm not sure. And so you can change the language if it works for you, because steadfastly facing thee suggests there is a thee out there that I am facing. So steadfastly lifting my vision, steadfastly focusing on the good, steadfastly allowing only good. Pick your whatever you are steadfastly doing that is shifting from focusing on the daily stuff to something that's higher, okay, that's more complete, that's more full. And then you can follow these sentences. So for now, let's use facing thee, knowing that that's symbolizing or standing for whatever word works for you. And then during the week, figure out the words that work for you. And let us read this together. Steadfastly facing thee, there is no evil on my pathway. Steadfastly facing thee, there is no matter with its laws. Steadfastly facing thee, there is no loss, no lack, no absence, no deprivation. Steadfastly facing thee, there is nothing to fear, for there is no power to hurt. Steadfastly facing thee, there is neither sin, nor sickness, nor death, for so it is. All right, so whenever I'm focusing on that divinity, whatever I call it, however I experience it, none of those things can exist in my life, in my world. Whew.
Well, that's a relief.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, so when I stood with women in black, we stood for peace, not against anything. We blessed everyone that went by because that was what we were there for. Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So strict.
So strict. It's just, it makes my life better. It makes the world better. Okay, the number for the second lesson, funny thing, is 2. Okay, complementarity, man, woman, black, white, darkness, light. In 2, we see that all things contain their opposite. At the letter of thing, at the letter of matter, there is the it and the opposite of it, okay, 2 sides of a coin. Whenever we're confronted with the appearance of one, we know the other is present within the framework of all of that. You know, we have that stuff. Substance shows up in duality, in matter, within the framework of creation. And when the 2 are united in the one, far greater things are possible, right? And we talk about that a lot, than when either one stands alone. This is the 2 law. Jesus sent his disciples, the 2 yaw. He sent them forth in pairs. One was positive or yang, the other yin. As for example, Peter, the impulsive, expressive one, and John, the trusting, yielding one. And it is kind of fun, if you're familiar with the New Testament, to go and look at how he paired off the disciples when he sent them off 2 by 2. My 2 watchers, spoken of in Revelation, are given power. They're given the 2 olive trees, enriched and set in authority, 2 candlesticks from above, filled with the eternal oil of healing, and with the sound of the second angel, the second sense of personal responsibility, heavy obligation rolls softly away. All right, so, and in all the other traditions in the Tao, yin and yang, you know, that sense of there is, within the yang, there's always a little bit of yin. Within the yin, there's always a little bit of yang. You can't have them one without the other in stuff, in the world of matter and stuff. Only in mind, only in spirit, only in the one is it all one. But in the realm of matter, there will always be duality. Make sense? The stone for the lesson 2 is sapphire, and it's the second stone in the walls of New Jerusalem, and it's also, and he talks about we're building the temple of our own character. It's also one of the stones in the ephod, the breastplate worn by the Jewish priests. That'd be the second tribe. And the apostle is Simon the Zealot. So Simon, Shimon, all right, or Shimahon, means hearer, listener. I hear and I obey in the Hebrew. And it's the second power of the soul. The first one was intellect. This is zeal. Love the ideas, listen to the doctrines, sought to reform others. He represents our love as sacrifice, the idea we must give up something in order to be true. And as we grieve our sacrifice, we release it and step into our true freedom. So what we're giving up is these ideas. That's all we have to give up. We don't have to give up anything, anyone, anything. Just these ideas of absence of sin, of sickness, all these ideas that haven't served us are what we are giving up now. So we are making life holy by giving up that which no longer serves us. Does that make sense? All right. I'm going to declare this session done, and we can turn off the recording. And if anyone has any